Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Jacob had always sought adventure, but the dense woods of the Black Forest in Germany held a darkness far beyond his wildest imaginings. It was mid-October, and he had come to explore the forest's reputed secrets. Legends of lost souls and ancient spirits whispered through generations. With a map, a compass, and a backpack full of supplies, he ventured deeper into the trees, the canopy thick above him, muffling the distant sounds of civilization. The forest had a palpable silence, the kind that presses against the ears and makes you question if you've gone deaf. Jacob pressed on, each step crunching over brittle leaves and twigs, the sun filtering through the trees in ghostly beams. As twilight approached, he realized he had strayed far from his intended path. His compass, a relic from his grandfather, spun erratically. The trees seemed to lean closer, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. He set up camp in a small clearing, hoping to retrace his steps in the morning. As he started a fire, the flames cast eerie shadows that danced and swayed. Jacob tried to shake off an uneasy feeling, attributing it to the forest's oppressive atmosphere. He ate a simple meal, the crackling of the fire the only sound breaking the forest's heavy silence. Around midnight, the fire's light flickered and dimmed. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Jacob heard something, a faint, almost imperceptible rustling that seemed to come from every direction. He dismissed it as animals or wind, though the night was unnervingly still. Just as he was about to drift into sleep, a chilling wail cut through the night air. It was not like any animal sound he had ever heard. It was mournful, a cry of despair that sent shivers down his spine. The hair on his arms stood up. He fumbled for his flashlight, its beam cutting through the dark, but revealing nothing. The wail grew louder, closer. Jacob's heart raced. He glanced at the compass again, which now spun wildly. Grabbing his flashlight and knife, he stepped out of his tent and into the darkness. The beam of his flashlight swept through the trees, but there was no sign of anything unusual, just the twisted trunks and the dark, still undergrowth. He followed the sound, moving cautiously but driven by a mix of fear and curiosity. The wail seemed to guide him deeper into the forest, as if it were a mournful song leading him toward some unseen fate. The trees seemed to close in on him, the shadows growing darker, the air colder. Finally, he reached a small clearing he hadn't noticed before. In its center stood an ancient, weathered stone monument, partially covered in moss. The wail had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. Jacob approached the stone, which was inscribed with faded symbols he couldn't decipher. As he examined the stone, a gust of cold wind swept through the clearing, and he felt a presence behind him. Spinning around, Jacob saw a figure, a young man, translucent and glowing faintly in the dim light. The figure's face was etched with an expression of sadness and despair. Jacob's breath caught in his throat. The ghostly figure raised a hand, pointing towards the trees. Jacob's flashlight flickered, and he noticed a narrow, almost invisible path leading away from the clearing. He felt a pull, a sense of urgency that he could not ignore. He knew he should head back to his camp, but the figure's silent plea compelled him to follow. He ventured down the path, which seemed to stretch endlessly. The forest was deathly quiet, except for the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant sound of his own footsteps. The path finally opened up into another clearing, this one more expansive and foreboding. At the center was an old, dilapidated wooden cabin, half hidden by overgrown foliage. The cabin seemed to radiate a sense of malevolence. Jacob approached cautiously, the wood creaking beneath his feet. Inside, the air was stale, and a heavy layer of dust covered everything. The remnants of what looked like a long-abandoned life were scattered around, broken furniture, a faded photograph on a dusty table. On the wall, Jacob saw a crude drawing etched into the wood, depicting a man being held by shadowy figures. Beneath it were the words, trapped forever. A chill ran down his spine as he realized the drawing resembled the ghost he had seen. The thought of being trapped in the forest haunted him. As Jacob turned to leave, he heard the wail again, this time coming from within the cabin. The temperature dropped sharply, and he felt an overwhelming sense of dread. He ran out of the cabin, the darkness closing in around him. The path back seemed to twist and turn, leading him deeper into the forest's labyrinthine depths. Exhausted and terrified, Jacob finally stumbled upon his camp. The fire had died down to embers, and the forest was eerily quiet again. He packed up his belongings quickly, barely able to think straight. As he made his way out of the forest, dawn broke, casting light on the sinister landscape he had just escaped. Back in the safety of civilization, Jacob learned from locals that the Black Forest had a history of mysterious disappearances and tales of lost souls trapped in its depths. They spoke of a young man who had once been lured by the forest's malevolent spirits and was never seen again. Jacob couldn't help but think of the ghostly figure he had encountered, now more than ever. The Black Forest remained a place of fascination and terror for him, a dark memory of a night where he narrowly escaped becoming part of its tragic lore. Good night, everyone.